Colleges I applied, none of them were asking for GRE scores. IIT has introduced a non-thesis track as well for MS. A lot of opportunities for people post-graduating and also during internship. There are certain states which actually give you license, 5 to 6 exams which we have to give before we get a license. The first scholarship which I received was in the admit letter itself. So luckily for me, there were certain internal scholarships as well. So I applied for those. Like there are a lot of scholarships which are there for international students. So you have an option of either taking the entire money as stipend, or you can get it reduced from your tuition fee, or you can have a mixture of both. Career fairs are like open for all the international students. During the internship, one can expect anywhere between like $18 to $25 per hour. Indian degree is a 5-year degree, and it would be great if you have some practical knowledge.
Hello everyone, welcome to College Dunia Study Abroad. My name is Anshika and today we have with us Saylee, who has completed her Masters in Architecture from Illinois Institute of Technology. Hi Saylee.
Hi Anshika, nice to meet you and thank you for having me.
Same here, it's a pleasure to have you here. Would you mind giving our viewers a quick introduction of yourself?
Hi everyone, my name is Saylee Bhogle and I did my Masters from Illinois Institute of Technology. Before that, I did my Bachelor of Architecture back in India. It was a 5-year degree. I graduated in 2017 from the University of Mumbai. And I worked as an architect in India for 4 years before starting my journey on Masters over here. So I came to IIT Chicago in fall 2021. And it was basically a 32 credit course. It was a Master of Science in Architecture degree, and I graduated with the same in December 2022.
So you said you did a bachelor's, but it was 5 years?
Yes. So Bachelor of Architecture in India is a 5-year degree.
Okay, got it. And you worked there for 4 years. Which firm did you work for?
Yeah, so I started with a firm called as D.Science Studio. So that was like a small internship which I did. And after that, for around couple of years, I was working with PG Patki Architects. It's in South Bombay. And post that, I got a fellowship from IIT Roorkee, Indian Institute of Technology in Roorkee. So I worked as their project associate for 1 year before coming over here.
That's great. So what struck you that you came to the US after working for such a long time and then even having a job at IIT Roorkee? What made you come to the US?
Yeah, so I always wanted to get some higher education and to like learn more about what technological advancements are happening in architecture. And I am also interested in sustainable architecture as one of the segments. So I researched a lot of universities and there were some interesting electives and courses which I found in US. And that really struck me, and that's the reason I wanted to come over here. Like I did research a bit in India as well, but I couldn't find anything which I was liking. So that's the reason I started looking at universities over here, and that's how I started my journey. And the idea to like work and come was like to get some practical experience in the field before I can get that higher education. So that was the whole idea.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So can you talk about the colleges you applied to? How many universities did you apply to, and what was the moderate and ambitious colleges you had?
Sure. So my initial plan was to apply in 2020, but because of the pandemic, I sort of like delayed it by 1 year. So I applied to a few universities in the US, and I also applied to a few universities in UK as well. So that's how I had kept it. So in US, I applied to IIT Chicago. That was one of the universities. I applied to University of Michigan in Ann Arbor. I applied to Rochester Institute of Technology. I applied to University of Pennsylvania, and I applied to MIT. So UPenn and MIT were sort of like the higher ambitious universities, and I would say like Rochester was sort of a safety net for me. So I ended up getting admits from Rochester, IIT, University of Michigan. UPenn, I was sort of put in the waitlist. So that was like a long haul for me. So I ended up selecting IIT.
That's great. And what made you choose IIT over the other universities you got admit from? I think University of Michigan is a great choice too.
Yes. So I started looking at both the universities. I compared the costs as well, what opportunities I would have after graduation or even during my tenure. University of Michigan, of course, is a great university. The credits over there were more, and it would have taken me to complete academic years to finish the course over there.
Okay.
Over here, people do take like 2 years to complete, but I had an option of doing MS rather than MArch. So there were two different degrees. Master of Architecture is a different degree, and Master of Science in Architecture is a different degree in
Okay.
IIT. So I ended up doing MS Arch. So I was able to complete that in like almost 1 year, like I would say 3 semesters.
Okay.
So I looked at the costs as well. So that was a bit higher for me. And considering the time I'm spending to even like finish my degree, I opted for this.
Yeah.
And also, like Chicago, they say that it's like the architecture city.
For
so
sure.
there are like a lot of like firms, a lot of opportunities for people post graduating and also during internship. So I looked at what sort of career fairs are there in the college, and like IIT's College of Architecture is like one of the best places to be. It's like pretty famous for architecture. The faculty is really good. The research which they are doing is great. So that's the reason I ended up taking that.
That's nice. You talked about having an MS and an MR. So what is the difference here? Is it like somebody has to write a thesis, I'm assuming, and one doesn't have to write a thesis?
Yeah, so MS does have a component of thesis.
Yeah.
So since I did a fellowship and my role was like a research-based fellowship back in India, I was much more inclined towards that. But starting this year, IIT has introduced a non-thesis track as well for MS. So if a person wants to get into MS but doesn't want to like do a proper thesis, they have an option of taking up a design studio in substitution to that, or probably a project. So that's how it goes.
But what's
And
the MR part?
yeah, so it also differs in the number of credits. So MArch is like a 66 credit program.
Okay.
And it would take like 2 complete years, like 4 academic terms for you to finish that. This is a 32 credit program. Both of them are STEM designated. One more major difference is that the MArch is a NAB accredited degree. So basically, it's recognized by the National Architects Board over here. And MS is just a post-professional degree.
Okay.
So in order to like get the license, that's like a straightforward way. So if one wants to get a license over here in the US, like we usually have an architectural license. So if one wants to get that, people usually go for the MArch. But there are certain states which actually give you license if you have an MS degree as well. So that is the reason I opted for this.
Got it. I mean, for you, it didn't matter because there are options. You can get the license even without the MR.
Exactly. Yes. And they do have a foreign architect path as well. So this is all is like prescribed under AIA, which is the American Institute of Architects. So there is a foreign architect path as well. So if a person is a licensed architect in a country other than US, you can take that route, and there is a certain process for that. Of course, it takes like a few years because there are like around 5 to 6 exams which we have to give before we get a license. So even like those were the things which I looked into, and then I found this option feasible, like the MS option.
It's not impossible to get a license even without doing an MS. So yeah, that makes sense. So coming back a little bit, when you applied the application process, I think you didn't give the GRE score due to it being waived off due to the pandemic.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I was actually planning to prepare for that, but to all the colleges I applied, none of them were asking for GRE scores at that time. So it was waived off for me.
I took the GRE at home because even I came in August 21. So that time it was new, and I took the GRE at home, which was a clearly different experience.
Right. Yeah.
So you didn't give your GRE, but you gave your IELTS and...
Yes.
Okay. And IELTS and TOEFL both are accepted in all these universities?
Yep.
Okay, that's great.
So there are certain universities in US which accept like TOEFL more than IELTS. But the universities which I applied to, luckily they all were accepting IELTS. So I was able to apply with that one score to all the universities.
That's great. What was your score at IELTS, if I might?
Yeah, so I got 7.5 on 9.
Great.
So usually like the minimum requirements which you see is like either 6 or 6.5 or 7.
I mean, it's just a language score, so you just get to the minimum and it doesn't matter.
Right. And if anyone is a bit below par, they do have like English services as well. Like there are certain prerequisites which you need to finish before you can start the degree. So
Okay.
IIT does that as well. So like they do have like on campus like English sessions or like writing center basically.
Yeah,
So where you can actually go and get your score from there.
that's great. Talking about the SOPs and LORs,
Mhm.
did you have to submit 3 LORs? I mean, the standard is.
Yes, it was the standard process pretty much in all the universities where I applied. Same goes for IIT. So I had to give like 3 LORs.
Mhm.
It can be academic or professional. So I had a mixture of both since I did work in India as well.
Yeah.
And in terms of the SOP, it was a standard. Some were asking for a 500 word SOP, some were asking for a 1,000 word.
Mhm.
And since my degree was a bit research based degree, I had to give like a research statement as well, sort of a proposal before I can apply for that for
Okay.
the degree.
So the research proposal is more like what you are interested in working on, or you want to
Yeah.
tag yourself with the professor that this professor interests me or this work interests me.
Yeah, so both the things I was able to see both the things. So in University of Michigan, it was more about which professor you want to work with and how your interest aligns with them.
Mhm.
And in IIT, it was much more open-ended. So that was one more thing which I liked. I was able to write down what I am interested in doing and how I would like to structure my degree. And that's how I structured my proposal and I sent it across.
That's great. And coming to the studies as at IIT Chicago, the course you said is 32 credits, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay, and you completed in like 3 semesters, so it's
Mhm.
doable to do that even when you do a research with it.
Yes, yes.
Okay, that's great. So the course you do you have the flexibility to choose the courses that you do to complete these 32 credits, or it's like some compulsory courses and then
Mhm.
some electives?
Yeah, so some of them were like core courses. So since mine was a research based and I had a component of thesis, so thesis was a compulsory like credited course in that.
Yeah.
And there was one more subject called as research methodologies. Since it was tied to thesis, those were like the compulsory courses which I had to take.
Mhm.
But apart from that, it was like flexible. I can choose whatever electives I want. And the electives which the MArt people have and the MS people have are the same. So again, that was one more thing which I looked into before applying. So I
Mhm.
knew that I'm going to be in the same pool where the MR candidates are gonna be, and I'll get a same choice of courses for the
Yeah,
same.
for
So
sure.
that's the reason I sort of ended up taking this course.
That's great. And you said that you have the choice, only the research. How much credit is the thesis? How much?
Yeah, so in total it was 8 credits
Okay,
out of the 32.
got it.
So you can, like, people sometimes do extend the thesis as well because you have to defend your thesis and then you have to turn in your manuscript. So sometimes you might just keep 1 credit or two just for the last semester, probably, like if someone wants to extend the same.
Mhm.
But now they did introduce a non-thesis track as well. So in that, there is no like component of thesis. You can either take a design studio, which is sort of equivalent, it's around 6 credits. So
Okay,
you can either take that and get your degree done.
got it. So did
Yeah.
you take like one whole semester to do just the thesis, or you just completed it with the courses along the way?
Along the way, so I started it from my first semester itself
Okay,
because it
that's great.
was like, since I had to first start with the research, then solidify the same, then like write the abstract, then get it approved from the professors. So I started early. I started in the first semester itself. So I like took little credits every semester, so that I have that subject in that semester, and I'll be able to show my progressive work
Yeah.
throughout. And that's how I structured it.
That's great because in my university, I've seen people in the first semester, they're just deciding on what topic they want to work on and which professor they want to work with. And then
Right.
by the fourth semester, they're like pretty confused that how would they finish their degree in this semester itself. So it's good to
Right.
start early and
Yeah.
decide your projects. I mean, the
Yeah.
research topic much before.
Yeah. So that's how I did it. Like in the first semester, it was more about like interacting with professors about the proposal which I had sent and what I would like to do, what sort of things are feasible in research, and what is the scope I should aim at, considering it a 1 year degree, and
Yeah.
like it's not like PhD, like we have like 4 to 5 years.
Yeah.
So that's the reason we decided all those things in the first semester itself, and I had like solidified my research in that portion. My topic was fixed in that. the second semester was more, so mine was a design based thesis. So second semester was more about designing, and that went on back and forth. And third semester was doing the final touches and writing the manuscript along with
And
it.
then
So I
presenting,
was and
defending.
presenting, yeah. So because the thesis defense usually happens like almost a month earlier than your final exams. So for
Yeah.
me, it was like in mid-November. Usually the exams are like in the first or second week of December.
Yeah.
So that, like, I did that prior, and then I submitted my manuscript.
That's great. I mean, finishing it in 1 year was a great deal with a thesis.
Yeah.
So I also see you have received some scholarships from the College of Architecture. Could you
Mhm.
talk about those and how did you grab those?
Yeah. So the first scholarship which I received was in the admit letter itself.
Okay.
So IIT has this one amazing thing that they do have like graduate merit scholarships. So if your application is getting picked in the pool where they see you as a deserving candidate, they might send you an of like a scholarship in the admit letter itself.
Okay.
So I got a scholarship of like $4,200 each semester for every semester. So that was
Nice.
like basically written like in the admit letter.
Yes.
So to start with, that was the one which I had. And then after coming on campus, like I started looking at other resources. I spoke to professors to see if there are certain internal scholarships available as well. So
Mhm.
luckily for me, there were certain internal scholarships as well. So I applied for those, and my application was already with the college. So
Okay.
I ended up like getting one more scholarship of $10,000. So which actually again helped me.
That's great.
And apart from that, like the administration, it does send you like weekly emails with all the resources. So there are a lot of scholarships which are listed, which are outside the college, which are like from different organizations or basically external scholarships.
Got it.
So I was like looking for those as well. And like there are a lot of scholarships which are there for international students. So accordingly, wherever I was able to fit in to the requirements, I started applying actively. And then I ended up getting a couple more scholarships in that,
That's
which
great.
were in the domain of architecture. So I would say that it's good to always like look on the websites, or like take a look at these emails which the administration sends you, because there are a lot of resources within that
Yeah.
which actually helps you.
For sure. So we were talking about scholarships. We can come to the expenses for you. So what was the whole course fee for you for the whole 1 year or 3 semesters?
Yeah, so it was about like $52,000. So
Okay.
basically, here the cost is as per the credit. So
Got
each
it.
credit is around like $1,600 or $1,614. So that
Mhm.
takes you to almost like $52,000.
Yeah.
And apart from that, you have the other miscellaneous charges of like fee, health insurance, or the activities. Now, since mine was in architecture, we have like a model shop and such activities as well. So that was like another $4,500 to $5,000. So the total, I would say, like in INR would be around 45 lakhs, I would say.
Okay.
And the room, your accommodation is something which is completely different.
Yeah,
So I
it's
was,
out of the college fee.
yeah. So this is like purely like tuition fees
Yeah.
with
So
all
talking
your.
in dollars, let's talk in dollars because you talked about scholarship in dollars. So
Okay,
it'll
perfect.
be like 60K USDs.
Yeah, that is like tops. Yeah. So 53 is like the base for the tuition, considering like around 1,600 per credit and into 32.
Yeah.
And you have all the other charges on that, like
Yeah.
the
The
health
one stop.
insurance,
Yeah.
yeah. So that is another 5K. So around 58 to
Okay.
$60,000 is what you can aim.
Okay. And
Yeah.
then with the admit you got a scholarship of 10K. So this will
Mhm.
come down to 50K for you,
Yes,
right?
yes. So
And
that was the
then
scholarship which I received after coming over here. So the one which I received in the letter was of $4,200.
okay,
So
okay,
which I was able to take like every semester for each semester.
got it. So it'll be for you. It would be around 40K for the whole.
Sort
If
of.
you had
Yeah.
some more scholarships, as you talked about.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's great. And being a research student, do they pay you a monthly stipend as a GRA or a GTA?
Yeah. So I got a TA position in the second semester.
Mhm.
So actually in the second semester I was an RA, and the third semester I was the TA.
Okay.
So during that also you get the stipend at that, like the basic general pay is $15 to $18 per
Yeah.
hour. That's the standard pay.
Mhm.
And you can work up to like 20 hours a week on campus. And so you have an option of either taking the entire money as stipend, or you can get it reduced from your tuition fee, or you can have a mixture of both.
Okay.
So
I mean, the amount will remain the same
the
irrespective.
amount will remain the same. So it can be anywhere between $2,500 to $4,200. So depending on how many hours you are getting, in which segment you are getting, so that can vary. But this is like the standard, like the rate which I'm talking about. And then you have a choice of either getting it as a stipend entirely, or you can request them to like reduce that amount from your tuition fee itself. Or you can have a combination of both. So some amount is reduced from the tuition. So if I'm not mistaken, it was 65-35. So 65% is something which they'll reduce from your tuition fee, and the remaining 35% you'll get as a stipend.
Got it. I mean, that's good to, manage your expenses in terms of having your grocery and your
absolutely
paying your rent.
Yeah. So that money is like enough to get you through. So for your basic accommodation, your utilities payments, your groceries. So
So coming to the rent payment, how much did you pay while you stayed at Chicago?
Yeah, so I was in the off-campus housing, and I was in a shared accommodation. So around $370 to $400 was the standard pay. That's over great. There.
So you mean a shared room? Or
a shared room. Room. A shared room. So basically, we were like 3 of us staying in a 1-bed apartment. So it was coming out to be around $370 per person, because the area where I was staying was near the campus. So that was like an apartment complex, and $370 was the base rent, and on top of that you have certain utilities which you have to pay. So taking like the electricity, Wi-Fi, so everything shared, you can consider about $400 to $420,000 or $420.
$420 per month. Yeah. Yes. That makes sense. I mean, Chicago is pretty expensive, and to get a room in $450 within $450 is
So like that's the reason we ended up like staying in a shared accommodation, because looking at the private accommodation, or having a private room in a shared accommodation, I mean, it depends on
literally double of this. It'll be $800 straight.
Exactly. So like it depends on person to person and how your lifestyle and how you want to be. So for me, since I had taken like so many credits, most of my time I was busy in college. So for me, this didn't really matter that much.
Come to sleep and then go back again in the morning.
Exactly. So for me, it was like all right. Like the pattern really worked for me, and I was able to save a lot of money in that rather than getting a private accommodation.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, and talking about the commute to college, do they have their own buses or options the college has? Because Chicago is a big city, it seems.
Yeah. So Chicago in itself is a very well connected city. Like they have CTA, which is the Chicago Transit Authority. So they have like a lot of buses and trains which connect you everywhere, like right from the outer areas to the downtown. So where I was staying, it was like around a 10-minute walk to the campus. But there was a bus as well, which actually dropped me right in front of my my academic building. So during winters, I used to take the bus because the winters are pretty harsh in Chicago. And IIT does have a service. It's called as public safety. So if you end up staying late, like working in college, or like you're studying in the library, so post 7 p.m. you have these services. You can call them up, and they can drop you below your apartments.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. So
I mean, Chicago is also a bit unsafe, it seems, depending on the gun actions that I've seen there.
Right. Yeah. So that's the reason they have this service, because like a lot of students, they end up like during exams time, you tend to sit in the library and study till late.
Yeah.
So they have provided this service, like you just have to tell them your like your card number, and they will drop you like below your apartments.
That's
so good. That was one good thing which we had, and since my apartments were like a bit closer to the campus, the ride was short as well.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of like Indian students staying in those communities. So there are like two major apartment complexes nearby. One is Lake
Okay.
Meadows and one is Prairie Shores. So there you will find a lot of Indian community and a lot of IIT students staying.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, and coming to Chicago's weather, it's a windy city, and
Yeah.
I've heard it's really, really bad there. So during the summers, is it the same, or how much do you think people face problems due to that thing, or they're able to accommodate?
So winters were, of course, like coming. So I am originally from Mumbai, so it's like a very hot and humid climate. So
Yeah,
coming from there, it was quite a transition for me. But it was all right because like all the indoor places are like
heated up.
well heated up. So it's just a matter of the time when you are outside, either waiting for the bus or waiting for the train. At most places, even the stations have this heating system as well, where you can stand. So I would say the experience was not too bad. Like it was all right. And the summers, I would say, like as harsh the winters are, the summers are extremely like hot. So yeah, so you can actually see that difference. So it was pretty hot during the summers as well. But having said that, like Chicago was a wonderful place for me to be in because there's a lot of inspiration, architectural inspiration around. Like the downtown is really nice.
Yeah.
And the college also had a lot of events during summer as well as winters. During winters they were indoors, and during summers we had a lot of outdoor events. So that sort of summed up my entire journey in Chicago.
That's great. And you talked about having a lot of Indians there. So, in the university, I mean, what was the number of students in the same course as you, and what was the percent of diversity?
Yeah, so I would say MArch has a lot more Indians than MS. MS has a much more diverse crowd. So I had friends from like different like nationalities, but now the intake for that has increased as well. But if you see in MArch, more than 50% of the crowd was like Indian. So I was able to see that difference in MS. MS, I would say when I was there, it was just like maybe 20%. But
Okay.
this semester, like the past academic semester, I saw a lot more people coming in MS as well, since they introduced a non-thesis track as well.
Yeah.
So I would say that has increased to around 30 or 40%. So
Got it.
yeah,
And what are the other nationalities?
so there are a lot of people from China. There are people from, so like personally, I had friends from South Korea, China, uh, Americans, of course, are there. There are people from like the Middle Eastern countries or like the Southeast Asia. So people from like Saudi Arabia or stuff like that. So there
I
was
mean,
a lot of
it's
diversity.
good
Yeah,
diverse.
it was pretty diverse. Yeah, so that was one more good experience for me, like being in that MS degree. There were people from different nationalities, so you get to know each and everyone's perspectives because
You get that
design is something.
international prospect of looking at things.
Exactly, yeah. And design is something which is very
Yes.
abstract. Like
And different
there's
countries
no
would have different
different styles.
designs and,
Yeah,
their
and
tradition.
everyone has a certain style of education or certain style of architecture back in their country. So that was really fun experience for me, like to know about everyone's perspectives and then put all those things together on paper.
That's nice. So can we talk about some of, like, did you intern during the summer, or you just continued with your
Yeah.
thesis?
No, so I did internship in summer, and I continued as a co-op intern as well during my fall. So I
Oh,
started my internship in May, and I continued that till December.
so you were interning and then doing a T or an RA and then writing a thesis in
Yes.
the last semester.
Yeah. So basically, my the first semester which I started, I was trying to understand what all things are expected from me, like how the course structure is, because things over here are different back than what we have in India,
For
even the
sure.
exams. So first semester was like understanding all those things. Second semester, I started with my RA work. Then after 2 semesters, you are eligible to work off campus.
Yeah.
So summer is when I did the internship. So I started from May. and that was till August because that was the summer duration.
Yeah.
And they did offer me a co-op as well, so I continued with that. So last semester was basically doing the internship, finishing up my thesis, and working as a TA. Yeah.
I mean, that would be too much load. I cannot even imagine.
Yeah, it was pretty hectic, but I was enjoying what I was doing, so it was pretty
That's
good.
great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Where did you intern at? Was it like remote, or it was a company in Chicago itself?
The company is in Chicago itself, so I interned with a firm called Perkins Eastman. Like they do have offices like all over the US, and they do have offices outside the United States as well. So the position where I applied for was in the Chicago studio.
Okay.
And so the entire duration for summer was in person. So I went entirely in person, and during the fall, since it was 20 hours on campus and 20 hours off campus.
Yeah.
Like 2 days I used to go to office, and 1 day I did work from home because I had divided it like 8 and 4 hours. That's how I made it 20. So the 8, the entire days I went to office, and 4 hours I worked from home.
That's great. I mean, it's great that the university allows you to do a co-op while you're even a TA or an RA, because some universities do not allow that, do not give the flexibility. I mean, in my university, it's more like you can do a complete co-op, but you cannot be a TA or an RA in that semester.
Okay. Yeah. So the College of Architecture did allow for that. So there was flexibility in that sense for me. And since I was done with all the compulsory courses, I was just left with my thesis. I had just kept like 5 credits of thesis in the end. So I did like 12 plus 15 plus 5. That's how I had broken down my...
Got it. The least credits for the last semester. Then
Yes,
it's easy
so-
to do a co-op.
Yeah, so IIT has like the courses of 3 credits. One course is of 3 credits.
Yeah.
So the first semester I did 12 credits. The second semester I took 15 credits. So that's where I completed my 27 credits. And the last semester was just thesis of 5 credits. So
Got
that's
it.
the reason I was able to
But
like
while
handle
doing,
it.
while doing 15 credits during spring, how did you get the time to apply for internships? Because I think spring would be the time where you'd applied for summer internships.
Yes. That was like the busiest time because I had 15 credits. I was working as an RA as well. And like just as March started, I started applying for internships. So the key was I started early. I kept since we have to give portfolio as well along with our resume. So I kept those things ready in December itself when I had the winter break because I knew that I would need to apply in the next couple of months. So those were certain things which I did prior. And I also attended like career fairs which IIT had. So they had 2 for architecture. One was virtual and one was in person.
Okay.
So I attended both of them. So attending those career fairs, that also gave me some confidence because that's when I started giving much more interviews and I was understanding what is expected of me, what sort of questions I can expect from the employers. So it was hectic, but it ended well.
And you talked about the career fairs. I just wanted to know that do they take international students also in the career fair, or it's just for the US citizens? And also, did any of the students grab a full-time opportunity or an internship through the career fair? I mean, was it helpful for most students or?
Yeah, so they do have international students can also be a part of that.
Okay.
So there is a portal called as Handshake,
Yeah.
where
I
everything
think it's
gets
common in
listed.
most
I
universities.
think, yeah, right. It's common in most universities. So that's where they used to schedule out the events when the next career fair would be, or next, like either in person or virtual. And we have to sign up for the slots accordingly. And they will also tell you what employers are going to be present in the same and what major they are hiring for. So accordingly, you get all the details. You will also understand whether the employer accepts CPT, OPT. They are willing to
And if sponsors, if the sponsor is H1B or not.
Right. So those were the details which were pretty clear, and all the career fairs are like open for all the international students. So that was a good thing. And the career fair for us was right in like College of Architecture itself. So I started applying for some of them through Handshake earlier. And
You then
The
just
internships,
networked in the career fair.
yeah. And career fair was more about then the one which I attended in person was more about talking to the employers, like handing out my resumes to
That's
them, like networking as much as possible.
yeah.
And it did help like a lot of people. Like I had a couple of friends who actually ended up getting internships through that. Even for me, like Perkins was present as one of the employers in the virtual fair.
That's
I'm
nice.
not sure whether it happened through that because I did apply through their careers page as well, like
Got it.
separately.
Yeah.
But there are high chances that it might be through the career fair because that's where I gave my resume to them as well. So it really helped. And during the full-time work, so for me, I attended the one which was in spring for the internship.
Yeah.
But a
And
lot of them were hiring for full-time for the people who were gonna graduate in May.
yeah,
So that was like a good experience.
that's nice. Talking about the full-time opportunity, you said that you graduated in December, so you might have started in January or February a full-time role. And that is not the same company where you interned or did a co-op, right? So how did you get this offer? Did you apply again, or it was through some career fair or some networking that you...
Yeah. So this was through LinkedIn.
Okay.
Like I graduated in December, but I started like applying to the firms early because just one disadvantage I would say, which I felt like graduating in December, is that there are like a lot of holidays going on during that
Yeah.
period. So the hiring is a bit low than what you would expect in May. So like a lot of people are out on holidays or they are not actively hiring. So that's the reason I wanted to start early in the process. And we did have a career fair in fall as well. So I attended that. I handed out my resumes over there too. So I did get some interviews from that end, and I applied a lot on LinkedIn as well. And we do have Archinect. Like there's one more website for architects where you can see the job listings.
Okay.
So even through that, I started applying. I started giving interviews, and I started working like mid-January.
That's nice. Because during December, I feel nobody replies on LinkedIn because they just have
Exactly.
in US it's a major festival, Christmas.
Exactly, yeah. So that was the only disadvantage I would say I faced in the entire journey. Like I did finish my course early, which gave me an option of starting to work early. But since I graduated in December, I wouldn't say it's like the best or the ideal time to graduate. But
I
I
mean,
was
it works for
fortunate.
you.
Yeah, it did work for me. Like I was fortunate enough to have like certain offers in hand before I graduated. So that gave me some time to actually think through and decide on which one to finalize.
That's great. Could you talk about the average pay on an internship or a full-time? I think it would be the same for full-time because the hours differ. That would be the only difference.
Yes.
But what would be the average pay for a master's student in architecture?
So during the internship, one can expect anywhere between like $18 to $25 per hour during the internship. So that's for 20 hours. Depending on what sort of firm you are getting placed. And for full time, that sort of differed a bit for me because since I had some experience back in India, some of the firms were willing to consider that experience. So that's the reason I was put up to a higher designation rather than starting at the entry level role.
That's
so
nice.
That sort of varied a bit for me. But like you said, it is a very similar pay as to what you get in internship. Maybe it can touch up to $30 an hour, like and into 40 hours. And so differs as per your location as well.
For sure.
So, like for example, if you are in like New York or California, the taxes are really high over there. So the pay is equivalent to that. But at the same time, if you end up getting in Texas, you don't have a state tax. So you might find that for the same designation, the pays might be a little less over there.
That I think that is for all people in every stream, that Texas pays less and California and New York are one of the hotspots.
Exactly. And for architects, there's one more website called AIA, which is the American Institute of Architects. So if anyone who is in architecture and who is planning to apply for masters over here, They can get an idea by just browsing the website as to what the pay scales are. So they have written like the designations, the zones, and the pay bands for the same.
That's
So
great.
you can understand where you can fall. Like they have written what sort of experience is required. So for an entry level architect in probably a mountain region, what would the pay be? So
Got it.
that's a great resource. Yeah.
More like a levels.fi for computer scientists. So it is the same thing where you get an entry,
Yeah.
like the job description,
The job
and
description.
the
Yeah.
firm along with the designation and the pay. Yeah, that's nice. Do you have some advice for students who are looking to come into IIT Chicago for a master's in architecture?
I would say that so it helped for me. I would say that maybe a little experience won't hurt, like getting some experience like after your bachelor's degree, because Indian degree is a 5-year degree, and it would be great if you have some practical knowledge before you again start your journey. And IIT Chicago was a really great experience for me. If you are planning to get into the research-based degree, again I would say that like do your homework, do your research prior, because you can see the list of the faculties as well on the website, and you can see what sort of research they are into. So if it is something which actually interests you, like do reach out to them, because that opens up opportunities for the RA positions as well.
Yeah.
And it would be like a great addition to your like the entire CV. And I would say start your applications early, so that it gives you
Doing
ample
everything
time.
early helps.
Yeah, doing everything early helps, because that's what I did. Even like for my 21, I came in fall 21, but I started like the previous year in like October or November.
Yeah.
So plan your exams and everything accordingly, because the earlier you apply, the more time you'll get to actually finalize everything. And IIT also has, I think, a priority deadline.
Okay.
So the students are considered for scholarship. If you apply before
In
that
the
deadline, you will be considered for a scholarship. So if you are applying to IIT, I would say that keep an eye on that deadline, so that you are applying before that. And if your profile is good, you will definitely get a scholarship. So yeah.
That's great. It was great talking to you, Saylee.
Thanks. Same here, and thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for being here.